Okay, it is official. I'm not gonna deny it. I am obsessed with the show Off Campus that was aired on Prime Videos about a month ago. But I feel like the reason that I'm obsessed with it is quite different from everyone else. Like I know that we all love it for how they portray like healthy male friendships, masculinity, and like consensual sex in a very fun and edgy and just an amazing, wholesome show. But for me personally, it is the part where Hannah's experience as a sexual assault survivor. And I'm sorry if this comes out as a spoiler. I feel like this is quite a well-known fact by now because it's been a month. I like waited for a while before I posted this. That story is what really felt really relatable to me. And it made me feel so seen to the point that I'm inspired to record this entire podcast episode, right? And on top of that, I've also decided that I'm going to put a pause on my podcast. Like I've decided that this is going to be the final episode of the season and of the show. So we have a lot to unpack, on this episode. And I'll be very honest with you, this is like my fifth or sixth attempt on recording this episode because it is going to be a very heavy episode. Like I decided that I wanted to honor the concept of the show where it's about a small girl talking about the big stuff in life that really matters. I felt like it's a way for me to honor a show by talking about something really, really big that happened in my life and change who I am as a person and shaped who I am today. And there's many signs that led to what felt like it's the right time to talk about this story today. So this is a heads up for you that it's going to be a very heavy episode. Here's a trigger warning that we are going to talk about sexual assault. We're going to talk about mental health struggles like depression, PTSD, suicide. Like I went through all of that. So we probably might get there. Like I'm really letting myself to just flow through this episode right now. I just felt like I think I just need to stop being obsessed with like telling you the right things that I planned for this episode and just let the thoughts flow through me and just really let my story speaks for itself. And I will wrap up this episode by sharing with you a little bit more on why I've decided to put a pause on this podcast, especially for those of you who's been here listening to this show for a long time. I feel like I want to share more with you before I just move on, and also to share like how can we keep in touch after this show, right? So, yep, there's a lot that's going to happen. But before we dive into it, I just wanted to play my show intro for one last time because I don't know when's the next time we're all gonna tune into it. I think the reason why this show really spoke so deeply to me, it's the fact that it was filmed in the university where it all happened for me. So the film is shot in UBC, which was known to be a set for a lot of movies out there. And I was so fortunate enough to be able to call that my alma mater. And for me, my sexual assault incidents happened off campus, but it happened during that season of my life where I spent most of my days walking on that pavement and across those buildings that I saw on screen. So it really hit home for me. On top of that, about a month ago when I was back in my hometown, I was decluttering some of the things that I had from way back, right? And my mom took out this yellow plastic bag, this yellow Forever 21 plastic bag. For those of you who are listening, I'm actually showing this bag right here. And I found the two dresses that I kept. And those were actually not two dresses, a dress and a skirt, the two pieces that I was wearing on the nights when I was sexually assaulted. Like At that point, when I kept this clothings, I had this idea like I'm gonna have a whole video of me burning this dress away because I wanted to symbolize that I gained back my power. Like I had that vision back then. And so I kept it, right? Because I just felt like it wasn't the right time yet. At that point, I felt like I wasn't healed yet. And I didn't know how it was gonna look like. I just kept it. And I honestly forgotten about it, that I still have this dress and this skirt until my mom took it out and asked me like, what are these clothes? And I was just like, oh, just some old clothes. And I decided to take it back home with me to here in KL because I told Kevin like, I wanted to do something with this. Like he asked me what are this, and I was like, okay, this is gonna sound really heavy, but these were the clothes that I wore and I kept because I had this vision, and it's just been laying around in the house for a while, and so I've been toying about the idea of thinking like, oh, maybe it can be a creative project for me to just wrap up this season of my life, blah blah blah, like. Back when it all happened, like say 3 to 4 years after the sexual assault incidents, like I always felt like it's like I've been through all these things for a reason and I'm meant to use my voice to share my story. So I've always had this idea of doing this thing. But so many years after the incident, so it's about 12 to 13 years after the two incidents that happened to me when I was in my university, I feel like I'm in a stage where I'm finally healed and I'm ready to move on from it, where this incident no longer defines who I am and how I feel. Like it felt like it's no longer a part of this story. That's how healed I am in a way. But seeing these pieces also made me feel like, okay, like I'm ready to move on from it. Like, do I want to throw it off now? Not really. I want to do something with it first. And that's what I guess triggered this episode that I'm recording now, because there's this whole clothes situation that I thought about it, and then this off-campus thing came up, and I just felt like there is so much that I want to talk about it. I want to yap about it. So I want to find an outlet where people get it. And I just felt like the timing just felt right for all of this to come in together. So that's why we are sitting here right now in my living room. The sun is setting. I was crying just now for a few rounds trying to record this, but I feel like I'm finally at ease and in the flow to tell my story now. And again, a warning, like the moment I start sharing the story, it just feels so heavy, and I can already feel the tears pulling on my eyes right now as I'm saying this, because I am going to take myself back to the situation to tell you stories that has once defined me and has once put me in a very dark place in my life. And the only reason that I'm sharing it out loud right now is for myself, to really just wrap up this season of my life and to honor my own belief that my calling and my purpose in life is to use my story to help those who are going through it, who don't have the voice to share how they are feeling or what they're going through, to just be the outlet for anyone who might have been going through it or is going through it or knows someone who's going through it. Like, I wish no one has to go through these things. But the sad reality is a lot of people go through these things and they struggle in silence. And I guess I've decided that I'm no longer gonna struggle in silence, and at the same time, I'm no longer gonna let this define me, and I just want to share it once and for all, and just wrap up this season of my life, right? So, the first time I was sexually assaulted, I didn't know that I was sexually assaulted. It happened at my friend's house. after an entire day of like some school festival event, and then we continued the party and drinking at my friend's place. And at the end of the night, all of us decided to just crash at the place because I think we missed the last bus. I was sleeping on the couch with another guy friend. Like there's like an L-shaped couch, I think, and or it could be like legs to legs, one person at one end. I was sleeping on the couch with this other guy that I invited to the party, who might have misunderstood my friendliness as an invitation for more than friends, in a sexual way. And it happened in a living room where we were sleeping on the couch and there were other people in the living room, like sleeping on the floor. I feel like there were at least 5 to 7 people in a living room with us. We were not alone. And it happened when he decided to just put his finger in me and thought I was gonna enjoy it. I honestly forgot how I reacted from the event, and I can tell you very honestly, like the morning after, I don't think I realized that I was sexually assaulted at that point. And then I just kind of moved on from it until the second time I was sexually assaulted. And this time it happened on my 21st birthday. And it was after the party when I went back to where I stayed, and it happened at where I stayed by someone who lived at where I stay. I don't want to go into too much detail about who it is because I have this fear that my parents is going to listen to this episode, and I don't know how far deep I want to go. But let's just say it's kind of like that kind of situation, and I was really drunk and it happened. Like we had sex. And again, after these 2 incidents, I actually did not know that I was actually assaulted. And it's very interesting because the, I guess in a way, lucky or fortunate thing, that is that this all happened when I was a student in a university in Canada or North America, where conversations about sexual assaults has been going on, where there are awareness and there are resources. So what happened was like days after the incident, I was very confused. I felt like I fucked up my life. Like I was the one who got myself drunk and put myself in that situation that I really regret, right? It just felt really wrong. It just did not feel right. And I just didn't feel safe going back to where I was staying. But it wasn't until like I just kept on seeing these posters in my university's like student areas toilet, like at the back of the females' toilet doors. And these posters were printed by the Sexual Assault Student Service Center, by my campus. It's like a resource that we have, like a department that we have led by some, I guess, volunteer students. I'm not too sure who are they. But there's such resources. And they were printing like these educational posters about how if you're drunk, there's no consent. If you did not say no, it does not mean that it's a yes. Like it's my first time learning about what consent really meant. And after reading through that poster for multiple times, thinking to myself, like, did it happen? Was I sexually assaulted? Like I had that thought, but I just chose not to believe it until it came to a point where I did not feel safe at where I was. And I guess I was very confused about everything. And I decided to drop by the sexual assault center that we had in my university. And after telling the advisor like the entire story, that's when she's like, yeah, that's considered rape. And I guess when you hear the word rape, it just felt like it's the worst case scenario. And I'll be very honest with you, that was the moment that things went downhill for me. It's that realization that you were a victim of a sexual assault, is that knowing that that thing that happened, that you've been trying to convince yourself that it's not the worst thing, that it is, yes, indeed, the worst thing. Like, it's that moment that I started seeing myself as a victim, and I was like, fuck, like, why am I such a pity person? Like, why me, God? Like, I had a lot of that why me moments, and I was blaming myself for putting myself in that situation. Like, there was a lot of very negative thoughts. But I guess that's the first thing that I wanted to share, is that for a lot of sexual assault victim, it is the moment that you know that it happened. It's when it hurts the most, and it's the resources that you have at that time, at this point, is very important. Like, you need to have the right people and know where to go to avoid yourself from spiraling. Because after this moment, like, I tried to keep myself busy with like school and like all the extracurricular and whatnot in university, and I didn't really deal with the issue. Like, I just buried myself with busyness and moved on with life. But eventually, when triggers come back, it just brings it all up, and all the unresolved issue just brings it all up, right? So yeah, that moment when you realize that you are raped, it is big. And in fact, there are other shows that successfully triggered me because of how well they show that experience, is two stories: The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and also 13 Reasons Why. When Jessica found out that she was raped by Bryson, Bryson, yeah. And when the guy realized that his aunt was molesting him all along. Like, those two moments of watching that show, when it happened, like, it really hit me to the point that I fell into depression back then. But the way that this show portrayed it, like, it felt, yeah, like there was a moment when Hannah was working, and the guy that raped her showed up at like for the hockey game, and it triggered her. Like, I really could relate to it. Like, that's how it was, and I think it's very well portrayed in the show. That fear of how everyone around you will struggle, because if you open up about this story. And that's the reason why I haven't told my parents about this. I don't know if they're gonna listen to this, but like, whatever. At this point, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna share the story. I'm just gonna record it and not think too much about it. But anyways, I'm just going through my notes of what I wanted to share, like how it felt so relatable in the show. Okay, I remember now. I want to talk more about the sexual assault center, because it might sound like going to them was the wrong decision, because it got me spiraling after that. But I want to say that it was a great resource, right? Because when they told me that, yeah, that is considered rape, they actually offered me with actual solutions of what I can do, what are my options. They actually told me that if I want to pursue my issue with the police, like if I want to report it to a police, like they would actually accompany me to go report to the police. It's just that based on their experience dealing with issues like that, what they realize is that in this situation where there is alcohol involved, where there is no other alibi, the cases usually don't favor the victim. And what will happen is I'll just keep on repeating the same story to the police, to the lawyer. It's going to be a long process, and in the end, I might not get the result that I desire. So they really showed me the reality of how this could be. And at that point, I decided that I didn't want to pursue it because it was already like the end of the semester and I was going to move out of the place anywhere. I thought I was just going to move on, which I was so wrong, but that's another story for another day. But I wanted to share that that resource was so helpful because it helped me understand what happened to me and it showed me what were my options. And they also gave me I think they pointed me to like a community clinic to get myself checked, just to avoid any STIs. And also they pointed me to the counseling services in my university eventually when my mental health was getting so bad and I didn't know where to go. I actually went back to the sexual assault center and tell them like, hey, I know you're not the right person to talk to, but this was what I've been going through and I need help. And they pointed me to the counseling department that took my matter very seriously and actually helped me through an entire semester because the counselor actually advised me to not take my exam because I was not in the right space to do the exam. And when I gave the letter from my counselor to my academic advisor, no questions were asked and I was granted a deferral for my exam until when I was ready, and that really helped me with my studies. And that's why I wanted to share about this because I am ever grateful of the resources and the support I got at that time. Like I opened up to a few friends during that time and they, my friend just let me sleep in her room because I didn't feel safe going home, right? Like I think my friend just pretty much adopted me for a few months and not complaining even though I was not paying rent and like it's an inconvenience to her solo life. But I am very fortunate to have the right resources because it happened quote unquote in the right place. Because I think if the same incident were to happen to me if I were to be a student in Malaysia, I don't think I'll be able to get the support that I got, and I'm ever so grateful for it. Like in the show, when I saw that Hannah had to write her story to the police to tell them about what happened, like those trigger moments were so damn fucking relatable. Like that's what I didn't want to go through to repeat the story again. And like the only time that I'm doing it, it's now and it's for myself, right? And let's see. Another thing that I thought is it's more on the cute side is that when Hannah wanted to tell Garrett about what happened to her when she was in high school, she actually started with like,
I'm gonna tell you something really heavy and you're gonna want to dwell on it, but you shouldn't. I'm fine, really, I'm okay.
I just felt it's very funny because that is exactly what I say every time I'm opening up about this story when I talk to somebody one-on-one, because I feel like opening up about a traumatic incident like that can bring a lot of weight to other people's thought. And I think that's why it felt so hard to record this episode, because I felt like this episode would bring a sense of heaviness to you, and that's the last thing that I want, because I want this episode to be an empowering one, not something that really makes you feel sad for me. And I think I just wanted to highlight that there was this scene when Hannah was opening up to her best friend Elle that she was indeed that person who was raped when she was in high school. She said this line,
I didn't want to be the girl who was raped.
and it's true. That's another reason why I wasn't sure about posting this episode, because I want to be known for other things. But I feel like, okay, maybe it's just a season that I'm willing to embrace in right now. I'm just telling myself right now, like the moment I post this, there's going to be engagement. We're going to talk about it. But after this, we're just going to move on from it. And we're going to focus on the new season in my life, which I'm really excited to share with you also. And one more thing that I guess I wanted to mention before I enter, a personal update about why I'm wrapping up this podcast is I guess I also wanted to publicly say thank you to the author and the writers of the show for doing such a good job putting out this story out there, because for the longest time where I was making sense out of the entire sexual assault and how it happened to me and why it happened to me and how am I going to move on from life and the triggers and all that stuff, I have always felt very alone in the journey. But seeing it being portrayed on a screen in a way that felt right, I know that it takes someone who has been through it to be able to tell the story so well. So whether it's the author themselves or it's the references that they got to interview to understand the actual struggle, and the director's work of putting it so well and the actor's work of bringing it to life, like I feel I've never publicly thanked a production team before, but I feel like I just want to say thank you. And of course, the author and the writer for bringing this to life. Like, I am grateful that this body of work helps me feel seen and know that whatever I went through was definitely not something that I experienced alone. And there's so many more that could relate to it. I think that's the end of the update about off campus and about my sexual assault story. I was thinking what I want to do with the yellow bag over here, right? The dress, right? I feel like I probably would just show you guys the dress and the outfit and also the photos I took on the day of the incident where I looked so beautiful, but for the longest time I had to self-shame and self-blame myself for the way I dressed up. And you know that all that jazz, but I don't blame myself, I don't hate myself anymore. But I'm gonna save that till the end of this episode, so please stay till the end. I think that's all that I'm gonna do. Like, I'm not gonna go crazy and go like, I don't know, burn it in the fire and all that. Like, it's too environmentally not friendly, so I'm not gonna do that. And I think it's come to this point where it really doesn't hold that much significance in my life anymore. So I don't want to make that big of a deal out of it, even though I'm also making a whole podcast and a content series out of it. But that's that's just who I am, okay? Content creation, it's just how I process my stories and wrap up my episodes. But anyways, I am going to talk about why I'm wrapping up Small Girl Big Talk, and then we will wrap up the episode with me showing the outfits and all that stuff and say goodbye. Okay. If you have been following my journey in the past year, you would know that I've quit my job to pursue a self-employed life. I've spent the last 9 months exploring different money-making opportunities to decide which path do I want to go. And in the process of doing it all, like especially prioritizing my finances and my career, it was just a very obvious thing that like podcast would be something that has to take a back seat. Because when I started this podcast, it was a passion project for myself to find a space to share more about the personal life experiences that I've been through, to feel less alone in my journey. Like, that's really why I started it all. But as I move forward in my journey now, like the time that I'm investing producing a show, it has to make sense for me. In terms of the return on investment. And the truth is, podcast is just something that takes too much time to produce in return of very little results monetarily and even like audience numbers and all that, like being in Malaysia and not having a clear niche and yada yada yada. So it's either I continue on the show with a totally different direction, like maybe in a business way and whatnot, or I just stop the show. And I decided to honor the concept of this show because I love why this show was started, and I want to. I love this show. Like I love the idea behind it to make this like a cozy space where we have heart to heart talk at the end of the night in our bedroom or in our living room and all that stuff. And I love it. I don't want to change it. And so it's just the harsh reality that like in this season of my life, I have to prioritize other things. So I've decided to keep things the way it is and wrap things up here because I think this is the real depiction of what adulting is, right? There will be seasons that you have to sacrifice certain things. And I think this is my way of showing my audience that like this is where I'm at right now. And who knows, somewhere down the road, I would find the right resources to be able to produce this show again because I love the space that we have. And until then, this is it. Like I shared earlier at the start of the show, I really wanted to wrap up this show with something very big. This huge rock that really took up my entire life, at least 8 years after the incident, was really big. And it took years of therapies, of antidepressants, of going to the church and seeking other new age spiritual support and getting into very unhealthy sexual habits as an adult and dealing with so much shame and just moving forward in life. Like it was a lot. But I guess I want to wrap up this show in a very hopeful sense, like why I wanted to wrap up this season of my life, because I have successfully moved on from it. I am in a season of my life where I married the loveliest man who loved me for all that I am and who accepted me despite knowing how messed up my past was. Like not the sexual assault incident. Like if he were to if anyone were to judge me because I was sexually assaulted, that would be a problem. But it's the lifestyle that I engaged in after the incident that I feel like was part of the problem. And Kevin accepted me for all that I am, through all the mental health struggles and all the triggers and just learning to understand how it is for me and to be there for me. Like he knew that I'm recording this episode now and he's like, if you need me to come back home early, just let me know. And I was like, I know. Like I'm just in a very, very good hand. And like the sad thing about my rape incident is that it happened on my birthday. So for the longest time after my 21st birthday, birthdays were a trigger to my sexual assault incident, my rape incident. But the nicest plot twist to that story is I also met my now husband on my birthday. The rape happened on my birthday in 2014, and I met Kevin on my birthday on 2018. Like 4 years later, this is the gem of the gift that God has sent to my life, and I'm now married to this beautiful human being. So there's a nice ending to it, and I wanted you to know it. What else? Okay, how should we keep in touch after this, right? So my thought is I am going to take my focus into my mailing list. I feel like I want to be intentional with the updates and the content that I put out now that my time is more and more limited. So the best way for you to keep in touch with me is by signing up to my newsletter. I would include the link to my Substack on the description box. Otherwise, the platform that I'm most active on social media would be Instagram, and I don't think I would have capacity to go on YouTube at the moment. but we shall see. So just keep in touch with me on my newsletter or Instagram. That would be the best space. Preferably newsletter, I'd say. I really want to start putting all this like long form stuff all just in my Substack. I might include some audio recording on days when I'm lazy to write, but that's the current plan. And I guess this is goodbye. For those of you who have been tuning in since season 1, thank you so much for coming back and hanging around as we navigate these different seasons of my life. I love that I started in a season where I was still in credit card debt, where I was not married. I think I was already engaged at that point. And when I was still working full time and dreading my last job and just really dabbling back into content creation again. That's why I started this passion project. And then we moved through the season of me preparing for my wedding, and we have the entire wedding series. And then I shared with you guys about how I manifested my trip to Canada last year before my wedding. And in between that, I had so many interesting guests who were mostly my friends that I got to introduce you to, that were really fun and interesting people that offered very different perspective. I really enjoyed just producing these shows and putting my message out there, knowing that whoever is listening to it would probably relate to it. That's the whole point of this show. If you are tuning in for the first time and you are listening to this, and like, thank you so much. This would be your first impression of me. But please don't remember me as the girl that was raped, okay? Remember me for all the other fun, interesting identities that I am now. I am a content creator. I am a coach. I am a rock climber. Fun fact, I actually fractured my backbone, and I shared the story about it before on this podcast too. Like, oh, look at it. You guys went through so much with me. But anyways, I think this is the end of the episode. And I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye. I realized after I ended the recording that I forgot to record my little show and tell of the dress and the skirt. And I had the time to go climbing, and well, when I was on my way there and coming back, I was just listening to the recording that I did. And I think I'm quite happy with how things turn out. And I guess it gave me enough time to digest what is it that I'm putting out to the world to share with you guys. And honestly, after going through all of it, I just feel like I'm so ready to move on from this chapter. I cried quite a bit today, and I think I still probably would sometimes when I go through these memories, but I am just so done with this season of my life. Like this dress and skirt that I kept back then thinking that it holds such big meaning in my life. Like, I'm just glad that 12 years later now, they don't hold so much significance in my life anymore because I've moved on. And I'm so glad about that. If you are still in the process of healing from it, I wish that one day you'll be able to really let go and find that surrender. And without further ado, this was a very beautiful dress. Wait, that's the back. This is the front. That is really, really cute peplum dress with like some sheer material in front. It's a very cute dress that honestly, if it wasn't tainted, like the memory of it, I would have just kept on wearing it. And this is the skirt that reminded me of my first sexual assault. I think what's interesting about the story of this first incident is that only after I realized what consent meant, that I realized that I was sexually assaulted the first time, and I actually asked the guy out and I told him like, hey, what happened back then? Like, I think at that point it was like months ago or maybe a year ago. That was non-consensual and you've sexually assaulted me. and I am just letting you know that. Like, his face changed. He felt bad, guilty, probably almost in denial, but I don't blame him. But I just felt like I needed to tell him because I felt like he was actually a good guy who just did the wrong thing at that point. And I wanted him to know that. And I really forgotten about this story, and I only just told Kevin the story just now because I realized that this memory came back to me only very recently, and I realized that I haven't told him yet, and I was already recording about the story on the podcast, and I needed him to know. Anyway, so that's all for this episode, and this is goodbye for real now. Bye bye.